Hey everyone, welcome to a very rare episode that I've not done for so long. This is Book Club, which I have run, well, for a couple of years, but I haven't recorded in absolutely ages. You would probably have to scroll back quite a while to find the last one, which was amazing. This one is a real treat. I'm always so excited when we actually get to speak to the actual author. So I'm going to bring Libby on in a moment. I'll give a quick introduction and show you the book itself. So Libby Langley, Life in Business. Now, Libby is a business mentor. She's a business fixer. She helps you make business easier and to love it that little bit more. I just can't wait to bring her on. That was quite a rushed intro. Everything that could go wrong has gone wrong today. The universe hasn't been on my side. The microphone fell off. The tech was just not on my side. But yeah, we have got here and I can't wait to have this conversation. So I'm going to bring Libby on now. And Libby will be able to give you a much better intro than I have. Let's bring Libby on. Okay. Here we go. There we are. I think it's working. Libby, hello.
Hello, how are you?
Hello. I'm okay. I've just said in the intro there, I said, you're going to have to give a much better intro, Libby. I've said the universe hasn't been on my side today. Microphone falling off, tech not being on my side. But we've got here, and I'm so sorry I've made you wait. But yeah, hello and welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, really excited. So Libby has been been a guest before. Amazing episode. So do check that out. Scroll back and find that. But this is really special. It's such a treat. You've got your book in the background, but I've been showing it as well. So I say it's always a treat when we get to meet the actual author to talk us through the book. You know, we can have our own interpretation of the book, I guess, but you can say it literally from the horse's mouth of what this book is about, what it means to you. But let's have a quick intro from yourself, Libby, first. Just a really brief intro before we go into the book.
Okay, so I'm Libby Langley and I'm a business coach. I have been since 2011, so this is my 13th year, which is forever. I'm a grandma in the coaching world. There isn't much that I haven't seen or heard from people or experienced myself. Wrote a book. It came out in February 2022, and it's really kind of a coaching guide for people on how to run their business. And my emphasis is always on working less, earning more, being smart, being efficient, and enjoying what you do. And I also have my own podcast, as you know, which comes out called Life in Business, same as the book, which comes out every Thursday.
Yes, brilliant. Love it. Yeah, and this is the thing about the book, and just me and Libby before, so we've had chats before, and we're so in sync with each other. And I loved reading the book, just how many times I was nodding along to this book. And this is why I really wanted to have this chat, because listeners of this podcast who get my vibe, get what I'm about, they're definitely going to love what you do, and they're going to be nodding along as well. Do you get that a lot where do people message you a lot about the book? Do people read it and message you as they're reading it along and say how much it resonates with them?
Yeah, it's funny. I had a call with someone earlier today, and she said that she'd heard me on someone else's podcast actually, and then had started to binge listen to mine, and then got my book, got it yesterday, and so she was only halfway through it, but she said that already she started to change the way that she's thinking, and it's given her renewed confidence or new confidence maybe to be more herself and to do things on her terms, which is really kind of the emphasis of the book. It's like, you know, look, we're all grown-ups here. We don't need to please anybody other than ourselves, or we might as well get a job. There's kind of no right or wrong here. You get to make your own rules. And I really strongly believe, well, as you know, I really strongly believe in that's how we change the world, by just doing what the blooming heck we want, you know?
Yeah, which is quite radical, isn't it? And when we started, I'm sure when you started out, that concept just wasn't even, I don't know, to me, it wasn't even on the radar. You just do things you should. I always say about the shoulds, and I know you sort of reference that quite
Yeah.
a bit in the book. But we do, don't we? Why do you think that is when we start out? Do you think it's a lack of confidence, or what do you think it is why we start out and we just can't even comprehend what you're talking about at that stage?
I I don't think it's a lack of confidence. I think it's a lack of knowledge, pure and
Mm.
simple. Because when I started my business, I had no idea what I was doing, right? I understood the business basics because I was just coming to the end of doing my MBA, and I'd worked with a lot of businesses in my previous job. So I understood the concept and the finances and kind of this stuff, but I didn't know what it meant to be a business owner, to think like a business owner. And no one is going to know that on day one, and that's something you learn. So I joined an entrepreneurial community mastermind, and they told me things which I implemented. I'm a very good student like that. But it was only after 4 or 5 years that I thought, yeah, no, I mean, this isn't the business that I want for me. This is me building a job for myself, like the job I left, without without the pension, without the holiday pay, without the sick pay and all of that. So that was my turning point of when I really changed it. And I'd been in business that was 2015. So I'd been in business for nearly 4 years at that point, when I finally thought, oh, maybe I can just do what I like. And now, in year 13, I'm like, yeah, fine. I'm just good. It doesn't matter. I don't care. If it makes me happy, who is anyone else to judge? And that's what I help my clients do too. It's just, yeah, do what you like. It's your business.
Yeah, and it seems so simple when you say it like that, but there's so much fear behind it, isn't there? And that's what you tackle a bit in there as well. I just love how the book is quite, it's very straight talking, but there's lots of empathy and compassion in
Mm,
there that you do reference on a regular basis. This is about, there's something I wrote down there about being was it kind and gentle. There's just so much I want to break down, but just to kind of bring that this overall view of the book, I love that it's very heart led. You talk about heart led marketing, heart centered,
mm,
and kindness and empathy. That's what we're not always taught, depending on where we go, I guess, for the advice to start with.
mm, mm. Yeah, I think particularly I mean, obviously you be kind of nice to other people, but it's really kind of about yourself. Um, it's thinking about what makes you happy, what you want, and that's absolutely something that nobody ever teaches you. Well, I mean, I do, but nobody
Yeah.
apart from me. Certainly not when you first start out in business. Is what do I really want? How does this make me feel? What matters to me? And I honestly think that is more important than how much do I want to earn. Because just
Mm.
looking at kind of at monetary values, it's not really a reflection of anything, because there's so many layers to that. But just, am I happy, yes or no? What can I change to make me happy if I'm not? Or what can I do more of if I am? It's kind of all that life is about, I think.
Yeah, and
Maybe
happiness
I'm a
is a
bit of a
big.
hippie in my old age.
No, it's good. I love hippie. As you can tell, I'm in the stuff. Almost like a
Well,
hippie
then
van that I'm
that's
in.
true.
But I love
Yeah,
it, and I think that it takes a while to get to that stage. And I guess what, yeah, I've
yeah.
worked with authors before, interviewed authors, but do say I've worked with them as well. And the theme I get is that I mean, this is why I want to write. I'm starting to write a book this year. And some people probably think, oh, being an author, writing a book, it's very not self-absorbed. It's probably just, some people might think it's just us wanting to get our stuff out there. But for you, especially, this is what I get from working with authors, is trying to get to people to not make the same mistakes, isn't it? You almost want to fast track people
Yeah.
to not struggle as much
Yeah.
as you did. And I think that's just so, yeah, it's such a nice, say kind and gentle mission again. But is that what you would say, that this is just to help people get there quicker?
Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, I've panicked about a lot over the years and made countless mistakes, which I talk about in the book and I talk about, every week in my podcast. And it is, yeah, I just don't want people to kind of go through, I guess the journey for me was quite lonely a lot of the time.
Mm.
And yeah, you don't need to do it that way. It's just like, look, decide what you want and then do it. And that there doesn't need to be much more than that. But of course, that is tough in itself. Like you say, it takes confidence, it takes focus, it takes self-belief, and a lot of the mindset work that I do with people. It's not just about practical strategies, but yeah, don't do what I did. Let me let me show you an easier path.
Yeah, well, the interesting, you kind of start with this and try not to give too much of the book away, because I want people to go and get this book. It's amazing. It's going to really help you get to where you want with more ease and joy. But I do love the how you started this sharing this journey. It's so important for people to know that you did everything that you thought you should do, didn't you? And I get back to that word should. That word's going
Mm.
to come up loads
Oh,
of
for
times.
sure.
But you went and got the office. You went and got the team. Things that actually I
Hmm.
encourage people to do in their own business. But you did that right from the word go, didn't you? And what was the thinking behind that?
Mm. That's what I thought that you did to make a successful business. I got my first employee, I think, about a year and 3 months after starting the business. So it was really early on, and I earned from day one, right? I never had a problem getting clients, never had a problem earning money, and was very profitable from the start until I got the office and the staff. And then I think I had so much fun with that I forgot that I was a business owner, and then started to realize that I wasn't making any profit because it was very expensive to run the business. And that's when I thought, this isn't, this kind of isn't what I want. But yeah, I didn't know. And why should I know? I mean, to start with, right from day one, actually, I used to trade under a different brand, and I always said we, always from day one. And that was a
Mhm.
conscious decision, that it's, we can help you with this, we can do that, because I wanted to be bigger than just me. And I think that's because I thought that that's what you had to do, right? And then, of course, I was in this entrepreneurs community, which was about building £1 million business and growing your team and blah, blah, blah. And I went along with that. And it was great. I don't regret doing it, but I would, well, and I do it very differently now, and have done. But also, it was a long time ago. So, I've always had an online based business. I've always Skype then, but I've always had clients all over the world from day one. And I ran a BTEC in social media within the first year of having the business, that was all online. So, but the world as a whole has changed enormously, particularly in the last 4 years because of COVID. So much more is online based. So I think there isn't the same pressure to have the traditional business of the office and staff, because everything is much more accessible. So I'm not sure now people would start their business in quite the same way as I did then.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, what do you think about? So I'm assuming that you've changed the we to I now, because this is something I see time and time
Mhm.
again. There's people I see I'm connected with online that will say we when I blatantly know, maybe I probably connected with them, collaborated with them. I know it's just them, but they say this we. So that's maybe a different point of view because I know from the inside. But what do you think of that now for somebody starting out? Is it just owning that it's just us and that's okay, isn't it?
I think it's entirely personal choice. There's nothing wrong with it. There's no judgment attached to it. But I think that now, particularly post COVID, we're quite happy with the fact that we know that someone, it's from solicitor to business coach to whatever, it doesn't matter what you're helping people with, that if you're at home in your spare room in your slippers, it doesn't matter. It's all about what happens in your head and the brilliance that you can bring, right? We don't judge people in the same way, whether if they're wearing t-shirts or suits. None of it seems to matter in quite the same way for the majority of people. So I don't know, the we versus I is a personal choice, but I think that personal branding, which is obviously your kind of thing,
Mm.
brand strategy, but the branding has to be conscious, and it has to be knowing, and you have to be kind of self-aware of what you're doing and know that you can maintain it, right? So for me, since 2015, I've traded under Libby Langley, and I've said and I mean, I'm really I now, right? Everybody knows it's me and it's my opinion and it's my thoughts, and they get to work with me, and I'm really comfortable with that. And for me, that's much easier to maintain. But to start with, that's not how I did it, and it was fine. I talked as we, and then we did become we.
Mm.
So
Yeah, it's interesting actually.
making
I
it a
guess what
conscious choice is what matters.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting, and I think it's keeping in integrity with yourself, isn't it? That if it is just you and you're saying
Mhm.
we, and maybe it's a bit of a mask that you're hiding behind to make it sound more successful, more professional, it's having that confidence to own it that you are the business and you are the brand. And I guess I probably worded it a little bit strangely there, but even myself, it's owning that for me because last year I switched to a business name. There's a few wobbles in my personal life, and I think
Mhm.
it just felt at that moment in time. Sometimes you're going to go with what feels right before you feel comfortable to take it back, and that's what I've done. But I do have a bit of a team. I do guess I've got a VA, I've got a social media manager, but I still stand. It's like it's
Yeah,
me
sure.
doing what I do, and that's the bit, isn't it? It's owning you as your brand and you, yeah, as your brilliance, and that's sometimes where people struggle. Would you say?
Yeah, I think so, and certainly I agree with the team, the infrastructure, I guess. I would say rather than team, but I have a VA, I've got an accountant, I have a web person. There's all sorts of people who do bits and bobs, which makes up a huge amount of support overall. And by saying bits and bobs, I'm not diminishing it, just that they have specific tasks that they do and that they're all brilliant at. But yeah, it's the thing for me is, who am I going to be working with? And everybody who comes to me works with me. And
Mm.
so therefore I. But if I had an associate, then I would say we, because to me that's the truth and the honesty of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's it, isn't it? It's being true. Because I think I talk about energy a lot, showing up with that energy, bringing the right energy across. And I think it is just that honesty and transparency from the word go, which you're all about. And that's what I love about this book. When we'll get back to the book, I could go off in all sorts of directions here. And we said this last time, Libby, we could try to do a whole podcast series between us if we could, because there's so much to talk about. But I've actually made some little notes, so I'm going to refer to them. Just key bits I wanted
I
to
love
chat
that.
about.
I'm so happy. It
I
makes
know.
me so happy.
Look, little notes. Oh, I love that. I'm
You're
such a
such a
good
good student, Carly. It's great.
I am. Well, I was a bit like that at university, and when you go to courses, I do it, but you don't always look at them, do you? But this time I am going to. Not to go off one, but just looking even at. I was going to talk about the actual strap line. I was going to start with that. Totally didn't. So easy ways. Anyone who's got the book or can maybe read it in the background, possibly not. Easy ways to work less, earn more, and embrace true happiness. And I love that. But my first thought was somebody that's coming into this, or somebody that's at a bit of a sticky point at the moment, it almost sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? Whether there's people that just look at that and think, "Oh, I'll never get there." And your book really helps people break that down. So what would you say about that? The easy ways to work less. I'm saying
Mm.
it's reading this, earn more, embrace true happiness. It's not quite as simple as that, is it? But what you give in this book really does help them towards it. I love it.
It is. Thank you for saying that. I mean, it is as simple as that, really, because it's not simple to get there, right?
Mm.
And I'm absolutely not saying that I will I will help you never have to work again, but still, get £1 million in a year. I ain't saying that. But it's all relative, right? And your interpretation is different to my interpretation, which is different to someone else's interpretation. And the thing that the ease doesn't mean that running a business is easy. It's never going to be, right? It's not the easy route, but there are ways to make it easier. And that's about understanding how to run a business. And the conscious business owner, how to think like a business owner, that's where all that comes in. And the earning more is about understanding your numbers and understanding what actually happens under the bonnet of your business. And then the happiness is whatever you want. I work with
Yeah.
people who want to earn 3 grand a month, and I work with people who want 10 grand a month, and it doesn't matter. I don't put enforce goals on people, right? Whatever matters to you. What I do is help people work out what their easy ways are, and that's different for every client.
Yeah, I love that. It's what their easy ways are and what their happiness is, isn't it? Some people might still think it's
Yeah.
monetary, but a little bit like my last interview guest actually. So check out the last interview, the last podcast episode, and that she shared a very similar journey where she made £1 million profit business, but she was at her lowest ever. So it's interesting, isn't it, that some people, a bit
Mm.
like yourself, get in the office. Sometimes we do have to take these steps and discover what we don't want before we know what we do. I guess again, that's part of this
Yeah.
journey of your book, what you're taking them through. You're asking these questions, getting to really think about this before they go down that wrong route or wrong route for them, what potentially could be.
Yeah.
There's no question there.
Yeah. No,
Sometimes it's committing
it's so
steps.
true. It's just, no, you're right. You're absolutely right, because we have like fixed ideas in our heads, and we're told certain things on Instagram that in order to be a success, we need to get up at 5 a.m. We need to have ice baths. We need to, whatever, all this stuff. And it's like, no, we don't. If it doesn't make us happy, no, we don't. Who says we have to? Someone on Instagram, or who cares? Who are they? They're never going to come round and help me on a bad day or have a cup of tea with me. So who cares what they think? And that, honestly, kind of say it quite flippantly, but that is a phenomenally huge mindset shift. That's like the biggest shift that any of us can make. And when you are on that journey to making that, that's when you start to become a brilliant business owner. That's when that happens.
Yeah, it really is shut out the noise, and it's so difficult because, like I said, the thing is, these people, these gurus, a massive lesson that I've learned these so many past decades, years, is just exactly what you're saying there,
Yeah.
that there's not always right or wrong, unless something's massively unethical, and something recently has come out about that, somebody in the quite public eye, well, in the marketing world, unless something's really
Hmm.
unethical, actually their way, it
Hmm.
doesn't mean it's necessarily wrong. It's just not right for you. And I think that's the key, isn't it? It's not being swayed by their amazing marketing tactics. They are just that. They're brilliant marketers, but we don't have to listen, do we? But it's hard to shut it out.
No, it is. And we can all scroll feeling fantastic when we go into the scroll. And then 5 minutes later, like, oh God, yeah, maybe I need to do that. And maybe I need to do that. And I'm not immune. I teach people about this, and you're not immune either, right? We've been in business a long time and kind of relatively comfortable with our own journey and all of this, but it's like, yeah, you can get sucked into it, and then you end up subscribing to something and it's like, what the hell, what, no, what are you doing, no, because like you say, you only know the surface level fluff, if you like. And certainly I think I probably know who you're talking about with saying what's been
Mm.
uncovered about a certain prominent person. And it's really bad. I think it's really bad, and it's really unethical, because if you're going, if you're lying about your numbers, either don't talk about your numbers or talk about them with integrity, right? Don't lie about and inflate your numbers, and also don't use bot tactics in order to boost your engagement. Just I don't know why people do that, because it's just a world built on vanity, which is not a good world, and it's not really a world that I want to be part of.
No, and that right there, this is it, isn't it? You can have this conversation with somebody else who is quite up for unethical tactics, who might see that they want that fast route to fast cash route. They want to get the numbers, they want all that. And again, stepping away from that and thinking, as clients coming to you, you're probably going to have this. You might have people come to you wanting this route. And I used to get with personal training, people coming to me and I want to lose this weight in 2 weeks and I want to do this. And it's having the something you touch on is boundaries. They go both ways, don't they?
Mm.
We can I'm trying to think what I'm trying to say. We're in control of our business, who we work with, and who we listen to as well.
Yeah, we are. We're 100% in control, and it's realizing that is the first step to kind of unlocking this magical world that exists. But it takes daily effort and daily work. It doesn't just, you don't just go, oh, I can make my own decisions, ta-da, utopia, here we come. It doesn't work like that, but it's a daily acknowledgement and daily steps in the right direction that make the difference. Yeah. And as long as you can sleep at night, you do whatever you like.
I think you
Because
swear there. Love it. Well, I'm going to go back to the book because like I said, I could talk about this all day, but I'm going to keep going back to my notes, be a good student here. And I was looking at, let's have a look, 'cause there's so many notes that I've made that would probably go for 2 hours. So I'll try and cherry pick the best ones. This is one I definitely want to chat about. Was page 63. So everyone's got the book. Let's do a proper book club. Page 63. And it's about self-acceptance. Now, I don't know if you've got, well, you do you know the book by heart? Do you know, like, if say page 63, you kind of
I
know
was
what's
just going to
there?
say, what the hell was on page 63? I've no idea. I've no idea.
If I get the book, I'll
Off
have to
the
get
top
to
of my
page
head, I've no
63 and sort
idea.
of
But
show
I'm
you the
sure it was
book.
genius. What was
Well,
what was
it
the
was.
title?
Let me go to it. This is like story time, listeners. I'm going to go to 63. This is a proper book club. This is what we should be doing,
Yep.
reading the book as we go along. I love the title straight away. For anyone who can see that, it is just fuck it. That's probably what drew me to that page. Title. That's probably why it sort of drew me to
Yeah.
that page. But it's about the first line. I've decided. I feel like I'm on. Is it CBeebies bedtime stories? I'm going to read this
Yeah.
in my nighttime dream. I've decided it's time to accept myself for the beautiful mess that I am. I mean, wow, what an opening line, Libby. Talk us through that, because to me,
Yeah.
this is huge, and this is part of this unlocks pretty much everything you're talking about, doesn't it? This acceptance in yourself.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I mean, I think that when perfectionism, right? We're all striving for what, I don't know, to be taller, to be thinner, to be younger, to be whatever, whatever this picture is, to be more successful, to be more of the right things and less of the bad things. And it's just like, but you're not going to be any different inside if you reach any of those things. So just how about just enjoying things as you are now? And if you want to change things, I mean, you can't ever get taller, but if you want to change things, then you just take gradual steps towards it. But the journey to where you want to be is absolutely part of it. It's not like I'll be happy when I get to so and so. It's like, how about just being happy today? Because you're absolutely fantastic as you are and where you are in your business. And look where you were, right? Look where you were. You were over there and now you're over here. And that in itself is something to be celebrated. But yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with any of us. There's nothing wrong with there's things that we can choose to tweak and change and nurture and develop, but there's nothing wrong with any of us. And that's huge. That's a huge part of self-acceptance that you can't grow your business without doing.
Yeah. And back to personal brand point of view, I would say about you attracting your people. How can you do that if you're not yourself? If you don't accept yourself, if you're showing up as somebody you're not, which I guess for you,
Yeah.
Libby, coming out of a corporate background, I've never really been in that corporate background. I've had different positions. I've worked for the NHS. I've always been I've always been an out rebel. I never really conformed to it. But I guess from you coming from that, which is probably explains why you got your office, it probably felt safe, familiar. But you've had that way, you probably had the corporate conditioning, I call it. How have you broke free from that over the years? That's 2 questions here, so I don't know if you've got a good memory, but I ask about 10 questions in one go.
It's all right. I'm
How have you
with you.
broken free of that conditioning? Have you got it so far?
Yeah.
I have to write this down.
Yeah.
Corporate conditioning, how you escaped that, and one thing I want to chat about, which we didn't chat about on the last episode, because this is quite recent, isn't it? Your diagnosis as well, your late diagnosis of ASD,
Okay. Yeah.
ADHD. Let's talk about sorry,
Yeah.
2 questions, completely different, but breaking that conditioning
That's all right. I've got
and
them both.
then that
I've got them
second
both.
stage.
Yeah. Okay. So the corporate conditioning is a really good expression. That actually, I knew what I knew, right? I mean, it's kind of as simple as that. And so I went into the business doing that. And actually, what's really funny is the first blogs that I wrote, because I started blogging from day one. I do the podcast now instead of the written blogs, but I still email my list each week. So I do the kind of written stuff there. But what was the first blogs that I did? Bearing in mind I'd come from a world of education. I was a corporate person within an educational environment, and I was doing my MBA at the time, right? So I was like, how many words can we use? What big words can we use? And so the first blogs that I wrote were just, I mean, they had citations in them, they had references, and it was very much kind of in that style. The first one that I wrote was I'd read an article and it was something like whatever percentage of young people will accept training in lieu of a pay rise. And I wrote about this. And I mean, it's funny that I remember it because this is over a decade later. But it was so funny and it was so rubbish. Right? I mean, as a white paper, it was fine, but as a blog and to engage with an audience, it was rubbish. And I just gradually realized over the years, and through teaching people about social media, which is what I focused on a lot to start with, like writing LinkedIn bios and all of this, it was very much write as you speak. And I've always stood up in front of people and talked to them, trained them, coached them. And so I kind of just realized that the way I was talking wasn't the way I was writing. So I was just able to kind of recognize that I guess, but I always wore jeans. Right? I always wore jeans from day one because I could wear jeans because I'd come from the suited and booted world, and it was like, look at me, I can wear jeans. This is really exciting. So I've always done that. But yeah, it was once I had this shift of I don't have to have an office. I don't have to have a team. I could do what I like. That I think I really shed it. But the first photo shoot I had when I'd got rid of Zest, my old brand, and was trading as Libby Langley, kind of came out as Libby Langley. The first photo shoot I had there, I was wearing jeans, right? But they were smart jeans, and I was wearing a jacket, and I had my arms folded leaning against a wall, and it was really kind of corporate. It was a really like casual corporate, if that makes sense, photo shoot. So yeah, it's taken a long time to do that. And honestly, now if I go into a corporate environment, I still go in my jeans and I still swear if swearing is necessary. And, and I kind of worry about it now, but I'm a lot older and a lot wiser. And I know that people want me now, not some perception of somebody else. So, yeah, so that was that. And so the
Yeah.
diagnosis, last year, I can't remember, April or May 2023, I was diagnosed as autistic. And a couple of years prior to that is when I'd suspected that I had ADHD. So it's like, oh, look at all these things. And it just it's made the world make more sense. But also recognizing how horribly confusing and horribly difficult things are. And I know we've talked privately about this a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's helped me on my journey of understanding who I am and why I do things the way I do, like why I'm kind of not completely unfiltered, but I say things as I see them, and I know that that's because that's how my brain works. I understand why. It's not because I'm rude or blunt or whatever. It's just like because I'm just like, well, you don't need to do that. I don't need to do that.
Yeah.
No, you don't need to do that. Right, let's talk about something else. And it's, and I've always done this. But I understand why it's like that now. So I think it was a curveball, let's just say, and it was challenging to deal with at the time. But 12 months later, I'm like, yeah, fine, it's just a thing, it's cool, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's huge, isn't it? I mean, mine was what, June 2022, my ADHD
Yeah.
diagnosis, but I do always suspect I might have a little bit of autism. There's certain things, textures, the way I can come across.
Mm.
It's all very, it's a hand in hand, isn't it? One can lead to the other, not lead, but they can be together. But what I
Yeah.
find, and I think from following yourself, we've been connected for a while, Libby, and even in this book, that yeah, that confidence just to own what you do, but not just what you do, but how you
Mm.
do it is huge. And I think that has to come from that, doesn't it? That when we talk about self-acceptance, I'm going full circle, but this is what I mean, isn't it? It's on a truly deep level. It's not just I accept who I am on the surface, but this is so much more, isn't it? When you have a diagnosis like that,
Mm.
that must have been
Mm. Mm.
huge to fully accept. Did you feel like you had to accept it all over again, or was it a lot easier?
Oh, I mean, it was awful, really. I think back because I bear in mind I was in my in my 40s. I won't say late 40s, be my 40s. Uh, early 20s. No, I was in my late 40s, and which you've lived a
Yeah.
lot of life, right? You've lived a lot of life at that point, and I'd already been in business for over a decade. So to have to discover this and think, well, Christ, what is my life and what do I do? I mean, it was really difficult, and I went through a period of grieving because
Mhm.
if I'd have known earlier in my life, some things would have been a lot easier, and I would have made different choices, and I hopefully I would have been better supported throughout my life by whoever was around me. So yeah, there was kind of all that sadness there, but then it's like, well, okay, that's what was. What's now? And yeah, so I'm very grateful that I did it. And I had a private diagnosis because I wasn't going to be hanging around for 4 years for the NHS,
Mm.
because I need to know, right? Because I'm
Yeah.
autistic, so I need to know now. And yeah, so I had the diagnosis very, very quickly after starting the process, which helped me. And yeah, and now I was a bit embarrassed. Well, I went all in saying, oh, now I can help you. You've got neurodiversity and I'm like, yeah, I can. And a lot of the people who come to me are ADHD or suspect they're ADHD because like attracts like, right? And so I know
Yeah.
that I can help people. And also probably about 95% of entrepreneurs have ADHD or autism, I think, actually, if we really kind of delve into it, or suspect they do, right? And so I don't know, it is what it is. I can't do anything about it. So, I'm not embarrassed. It's like, I'm a woman, which is attracts or repels. I'm autistic ADHD, which attracts or repels. There's a million things, right, for all of us, I think. And so I just put it
Yeah.
down as another facet in terms of my marketing, but in my personal life and how I am inside, that's not necessarily anything that I share so deeply, because sometimes it's really hard. Sometimes
Yeah.
life is really difficult, but I'm better at acknowledging that and coping with it now.
Yeah, love it. And so much of what you've said there has resonated with me. And I felt that sense of grief. I still feel it every now and
Mm,
again. Some things you do, maybe it's just something you come across that you think, oh, it's a big reminder of your past and you would have done things differently. But what I love is, you just thank you so much for sharing that, Libby, because that's a big thing to share. Because we are conditioned, back to that word
mm,
conditioning, we are conditioned to present ourselves a certain way, not to share our struggles. I mean, it's gone full circles now. Some people do say in branding and content, share your struggles, be vulnerable, but it doesn't come naturally to us. So if you think for you to open that up to the conversation, you can have helped so many people. Some you will have realized, I
mm,
bet some have maybe thanked you for it. Some you won't have done. But yeah, I don't know where I'm going with that. I just praise, I guess, because I know myself just how difficult that journey is. For
mm,
and what sorry,
mm,
I've not let you respond to that, but what I love really as well that you've hinted to that, you've leaned into that in the book, but you're not necessarily, and I'm a big fan of this, you've not necessarily labeled it because as you say, there's people that you come across that like suspect they are. There's people that you come across and you must have this. I've got a radar now and I know who's got ADHD,
oh
possibly
yeah.
ASD. They might not know they don't know themselves. And it's really awkward because you just want to say it or you're waiting for them to say it. And it's like, oh, they don't know.
Yeah.
I know. They don't know yet.
Yeah,
So
no,
is that was that a
exactly.
conscious decision in your marketing? Yeah. Was it conscious in the book and in your marketing not to put a label on it to not alienate the people who don't know yet.
I didn't know when the book came out. I hadn't, it was back, the book came out
Oh,
pre-diagnosis, so I didn't know. I mean, the ADHD I'd kind of suspected, self-diagnosed, but I hadn't had the autism diagnosis. So what I realized once I was diagnosed, it was like, well, shit, here, what I've written is a guide for neurodivergent business owners. And I didn't realize that, but you read through it now with these kind of post-diagnosis eyes, and it's like, oh yeah, okay, that makes well, now I see it. And I was going to last September, I'd set a date for kind of re-releasing it and branding it as a guide. And then I just thought I was still kind of last summer, the 3 or 4 months after diagnosis, I was kind of going through a lot, processing it all, and I shelved the project because I'm like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if anybody knows me, or comes across me and buys it because I'm a neurodivergent business owner, business coach, great. Or if they just find it on Amazon randomly and it resonates with them, great. It doesn't matter to me. But anyone who listens to my podcast will know that I probably reference it in most episodes at some point. It's sometimes in a self-deprecating way, and sometimes in a, do you know what, you might think like this too way. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I think you've touched on something key there because I kind of guess that's what kind of question I was asking, but I didn't realize you hadn't been diagnosed. I couldn't quite work out the timeline. I was probably thinking ADHD, but yeah, I'm quite. In fact, I changed my Instagram bio so much, and recently I did put ADHD in the title, and I took it off again because just like you said that we attract those people anyway. So do we need to put a label on it where people who aren't diagnosed, they won't know and they wouldn't then read ADHD and think that's talking to me, but it might be. So there's so many layers to this, but we just
Mm,
attract those people anyway, don't we? And people must come to you, listen to your podcast, read your
mm,
book, and they just get that vibe from you without necessarily knowing what it is. So you did you
mm.
write that anyway? You wrote just thinking, well, I don't know what I'm asking it. I'm going off on one. I don't know what I'm asking anymore. But yeah, like attracts like, doesn't it? Just like you said before.
Yeah, it does. It does. And interestingly, on I put it on my Instagram bio and I think my LinkedIn headline pretty much straight away because I thought, right, I need to go all out with this. This is who I am. And I've taken it off both of those, but I do have it on Threads, which I'm quite active on Threads. I do
Mm.
say autistic ADHD on there because it feels like a different space and it's much easier to have conversations on certain topics. So to me, that feels like a nice place to kind of be part of that community and part of that conversation. So it's kind of different, but I follow lots of particularly ADHD actually accounts on Instagram, and so I engage in the community. So yeah, people get to know about you from all sorts of weird and wonderful places, don't they? So it's
Yeah.
part of my life, like I like cats and cat memes. I'm autistic, and it's just kind of another facet to me. So yeah.
Yeah, it is. I love it. I'm going to rather than me go off on one, I'm going to go back to my notes. Very studious. I feel like I should put my glasses on for this, but I don't even know where they are. Very studious. I'm going to go to, hmm, It's like just picking because there's so many just brilliant points in this book. It's just it almost feels I'm going off one, but it feels like as you read it, there's just light bulb after light bulb after light bulb moment. Especially for I
Absolutely.
nod along and agree with it so many times, but for somebody coming to it from a different point of view, from probably quite a beginner, it's going to be really eye opening. I love that. But let me go to hmm, page 87. See, let's test you on the spot, Libby. Page 87.
Well done.
Nope. I know. Okay, feeling triggered. Now, this is something that I'm a massive
Yeah.
advocate of because as much as we say like attracts like, that we're going to follow the people that we are attracted to, people are going to attract us. It's not always the case. And again, especially if it's before a diagnosis or we're starting out and we're following the shoulds as we do, we get wrapped up into their marketing. We might be following people or subscribe to an email list that actually triggers us without necessarily knowing. And you're saying it's okay just to, I can't remember what you actually said. You've put mute, unfollow, and block, and that we get to choose. It's back to that control. So let's talk about that, about this
Mhm.
feeling triggered, and that we can just get rid, can't we?
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny because if you put, I've always tried to put things into like real world terms, like actual physical terms, analogies. And it's like if you're walking down the street and somebody like pushes you or pokes you as you walk past, you like, what are you doing? And then you make sure that you never come into contact with them again, right? Or if somebody shouts a name at you or somebody is really hurtful to you, you report them. Yeah, you go to the police station and you report them. So in real world terms, we know how to deal with these things. But online, if somebody just kind of upsets you because you don't like what they do, why do you keep following them? People keep following them, and it's like you don't have to do that. You can, yeah, you can, if you don't want to unfollow them for, I don't know, political reasons or whatever. I mean, as in like relationships and stuff, you can mute them so you don't see their stuff. If you can just unfollow them or you can completely block them. And I mean, I've done that to all sorts of people, and people serve a purpose for a certain amount of time, right? So somebody can be hugely useful in in the early stages of a business, or after a couple of years, or after 10 years or whatever. And it's okay to like change who you're connected with and switch it up. You don't have to stick with people for forever. And I know that I've had clients who have now unsubscribed from my email list. And I mean, we're probably still connected on social media, but I don't really see their stuff and they don't see mine because we don't engage with each other. And that's fine. We did brilliant work together when they needed it, and they've moved on, and perhaps my business has changed to something that they don't want. And that's all fine. You don't have to think, oh well, they've got to be here we've got to be here forever and I'm in this for the long haul. And it's like, nah, mate, you might just need me for a fortnight and then we're done. And that's all right. But yeah, you're absolutely in control of any of this. And if somebody unfollows you, well, you're probably not going to notice, right? But it's like, yeah, so what? We have friends that we're great friends with, and then we don't see them again. It's just how life is. But absolutely, you can make the conscious choice. And if somebody is triggering you, do something about it. Don't be moaning about it without
Mhm.
doing anything. You are in control.
Love it. And that's the straight talking I love right there because it is just do it. Just unfollow, unfollow, mute, block, trying to say it again. But there's two things I'm just going to bring up from personal point of view that I'd love to just quickly start again, quickly touch on there is for me when I have I think there's somebody on my Facebook at the moment. It's a personal connection, but it's a business connection. And they do trigger me. So I mute them. I haven't taken that bold step
Mhm.
of unfollowing yet because there's a bit of FOMO there. They're connected to some really good people. They do talk some sense at times, but they just trigger me. Then I start to second guess myself, thinking, "Am I triggered because that's like an unhealed part of me?" And that person sometimes says that, so messaging can be really strong. It's difficult, isn't it? So sometimes I do it out of FOMO. And there's something else I thought of. I can't remember it now. But yeah, let's talk about that. The FOMO of it. That person maybe that you're aspiring, or you were aspiring at one point to work with them or to be in their world. I don't know. There's a lot of that goes on, isn't there, at the minute?
Yeah, there is. And it's quite interesting because if you thought, oh, maybe I'll work with them one day, but you haven't worked with them yet, you ain't never going to work with them. Really, probably, right?
Mm.
You're probably not, because for the most part, we discover people, and then within, oh, I don't know, I mean, within a few weeks, or certainly probably within a year, we've made the decision to do it or not to do it. It's I mean, saying that, I did have a client on my who was on my email list for 10 years before she started working with me. So people do hang around, but generally speaking, you make that kind of decision relatively quickly. And the thing about, oh, I'll hang around in case they say something interesting, which is what you've said, and
Mhm.
we've all done it, then why? What would your life be? Have you ever been to any of their events? Have you ever bought anything from them? And it's like, if the answer's no, then you're not missing anything, actually. And even the world that they're in, connect with the people they're connected with. That's you don't
Yeah.
none of us need that, because if it just makes us feel inadequate or wonder why we're not the person leading that kind of gang, it doesn't matter. We're all on our own path, and you don't know what's going on behind the scenes in their life. So actually, you might be happier and personally more kind of emotionally wealthy than them. And so that's great. You're never going to know.
Yeah, I love that. That might just inspire accountability. I think I will go and unfollow. That is what I need to do. But that's just even to anybody listening that has experienced that. And the other thing I was going to say was from a diverse point of view, that this is something I've had to really check in with myself. What you said about people unsubscribing off your list, it's taken me a long time to almost celebrate it. That yeah, they're not my people. Whatever I said to trigger them, they were
Mm,
never going to buy from me. They were never going to connect with me. But there's something called, and
mm.
you must experience it yourself, Libby, or you'll come across this with RSD. So part of
RSD. Yeah.
RSD, yeah. So not neurotypical,
Yeah.
part of neurodiversity, RSD, rejection, sensitivity, dysmorphia. I'll say it right, and I'm actually doing a solo episode on that at some point around launching, because I think it can really rear its head at that point. This sensitivity to rejection, and that's something for me I've had to really, really check in with. So a subscribe now I celebrate,
Mm,
unsubscribe. But in the past, I would have even just one unsubscribed. It might be like, oh, you take it personal. Have you ever experienced
mm.
that?
Yeah, and it's horrendous. I would say that it's probably one of the worst aspects of my neurodiversity. I find that very challenging. Not today, today's a good day. But sometimes, yeah, and it's crippling, and you second guess everything, and it's a feeling of, what's the point? What's the point? Because I'm not good enough. In a nutshell. I mean, it's much more than that, but in a nutshell. And I know everybody
Yeah.
feels like that, but this is like, oh no, I believe this with my entire being, and now I can't even get dressed because that's kind of the level of seriousness of this. And it's not a joking matter, because it's utterly rubbish when it hits, right? But I think I think for me that manifests itself, I don't know, it's almost like a series of events, but it's definitely around people rejecting me. And I know it's called rejection, but people rejecting me in that they haven't signed up for the thing I've given them. Even though it's great, it's like, oh, it's because it's me. But it's not. It's because they haven't seen the email, or they haven't seen the social media post, or today they're, I don't know, they're taking their mum out shopping. I don't know, whatever. It's never personal, never really personal. Or so kind of, people haven't signed up for the thing, or I've requested something and someone says no to me, and it's taking things personally that in the grand scheme of things aren't personal. So when it comes to email and subscribes, I've had a few recently that I guess I've kind of become more me in my emails. I think I'm much more confidently me this year. There's been a shift for me this year, 2024. And so few people have unsubscribed. And I always look, every time I email, I always look, which is, I don't need to, but I always do. And I'm like, okay. I'm surprised that they've unsubscribed. However, I wish them well. And it's like, they've just unsubscribed from an email list, but someone unsubscribed last year and then came on a workshop that I ran in January, and I said to her, you won't get the email reminders because you've unsubscribed. And she said, oh yeah, I was just doing a big clear out, and I do it every year. But she then bought something and came on one of my workshops. It doesn't mean anything. It just doesn't mean, it's just a bloody email list, you know? It's like, so you have to keep some
Yeah.
things relative. Yeah, that's what I would say. But our RSD, I think, goes deeper. It goes deeper than that. But that could be one layer of it for sure.
Yeah, it could, and that is a whole different conversation. That's why I really want to bring conversations like that to this podcast. And I guess if you ever did write a second book, won't put that probably pressure on you just yet, Libby, because it's probably, well, I'm ready to embark on this journey. But even if you ever do a second edition of that, there's probably something. Those are sort of things you've learned of since, I guess, since you've wrote your book that you just know, that makes sense. And you might put that in. That's just a quick question because I'll go on to something else. But is that something you would write in the future?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it feel to write a book about what it's like to be autistic ADHD. I don't know. I kind of feel like I don't necessarily want to do that. I'm happy to talk about it on my podcast
Mm.
and stuff. And I've mentioned RSD on the podcast, and you know, we're obviously talking about it now, right? But so probably not, because I don't want to be known for that. I would rather write about things that reflect on my own experience, but actually help others. Maybe that's a wall, right? Maybe that's a barrier, but it's just like these people, you know, some will become clients, and I love helping people, but they're not in my life. Therefore, there's stuff I share and stuff
Mm.
I don't share, you know, and that will always be the same for me.
Yeah, and that's key. I talk about a lot about how personal should a personal brand be, and it's exactly what you're saying, that it's what you feel comfortable with sharing, and that might change at some point in your journey. And for everyone listening, that
Mm-hmm.
might be things in the future that you might think, "Joe, we'll share that because it'll help them to overcome their feelings of it." But at
Mm-hmm.
this moment of time, it's not right for you. And I totally agree with that. I'm going to go back to the sheet rather than go off on one again. So let me see. On to, I'm going to put you on the spot in a minute, Libby, as well, and ask some points about the book. Going on to page. Oh yeah, 162. Again, I won't test you on that. It's about your Facebook group because
Oh
even
yeah,
with this kind of
and I
all
shut it
links, it's actually
down.
RSD. Yeah, because RSD, I'm about to shut mine down. I made that decision. I put a post in the group. Haven't quite done it yet because it's taking that final leap to do it. But I think even things like RSD were coming from that. You know, when you're not getting the engagement, when you know
Mm.
it's the algorithm, really, you know what's going on, but sometimes you do take it a bit personal, or it's just the effort you're putting in and you're not getting something back. So talk us through that decision, because that might be, again, somebody might be listening thinking, shall I close my group? Shall I do this? There's big
Mm.
decisions, isn't there, that are so difficult to make sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, the thing to remember is that majority of your listeners, I think, are the same as us, in that they are solopreneurs, but with perhaps with kind of VAs and people dotted about, right? There are only so many things that we can do. And if we're spending all our time posting on social media, posting on, you know, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, a Facebook group, blah, 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 it's like, well, we haven't got any time to actually service any clients. So you have
Yeah.
to make a decision about what is right. And for me, and I know that I say this in the book, for me, I do admit that I didn't know what to do with the Facebook group. Right, I had a Facebook group and I was sharing stuff in it, and there was engagement, you know, and this important to clarify, it's not a Facebook group associated with the program. It was a free Facebook group for anyone. So private Facebook groups are a completely different ball game, but this was a public free Facebook group, and I didn't know what to do with it. So it was a bit like, I don't know. And I just thought, you know what? Everybody can get loads of free stuff from all over the place. And if this didn't exist, and this is the kind of the important thing to always ask, you know, like when you're thinking, if someone's triggering you, if you want to unsubscribe, you ask this question. And if you're thinking of stopping doing something, you ask this question: will it negatively impact my business if this no longer exists? And no,
I like
the answer was no. And I emailed everybody to say, or, you know, as many as I could that were in the group. I think I probably emailed my entire list about it. And I just did it. And I honestly haven't given it a second thought since, which is kind of the
that.
point, right? It's like, well, that just doesn't exist anymore. So now I do lots of other things. And since then, I launched my podcast, which is fantastic. I get loads of listeners for that. I get people messaging me. I get I get clients from it. So it works both ways. Whereas the Facebook group didn't, I think, because it was like it's minimal value, right? It's just chat in a Facebook group. Whereas something meaty like a podcast
Mm.
really supports people, and you can really invest. It's worth investing, has longevity, worth investing the time and energy in. Mm.
Yeah, I love my podcast, and I've only really just come back to it before Christmas in 2023, but I missed it because it feels like a different level. So you have these again. I'm just
Mm.
referred last time to my notes. In something about it, freebie seekers on page.
Mm.
Oh, I can't even think it now. I've not got it. But you say about freebie seekers, and this is something that comes up, isn't it? That even on your list, it's who subscribed just for the freebie versus who is actually going to invest with you. Who was in your free group that would upgrade to something paid with you? There's a lot of that goes on, but with podcasts, it just feels, yeah, you've got this listening base that are actually here to listen, to learn, and I think they've got that potential of becoming clients. But it's also content as well, isn't it? For me, I just love it. I love doing a
Mm.
podcast. Again,
Mm.
going out for one, but it's been a bit of a game changer for me. So, with you closing that group, did you then have more time? I guess, did you then launch the podcast after the group?
Yeah, I can't remember when I closed the group. So hang on, the book came out in February 2023. I think it was the summer of 2022 that I closed the Facebook group, if I remember rightly. And there were some ex-clients in it, actually. Now I think about it, there was people who'd maybe been on a workshop of mine years ago, but anyway. But yeah, and the podcast, I think I decided to launch in September or October, exactly the same time I decided to write a book, and it launched in the December, and then the book came out in the February. So yeah, it was like, oh man, that's just not serving me. I don't need it. Um, I'm going on to bigger. I'm on bigger and better things. So I think it was just one thing off my list that had been a stressor for me. So it gave me more clarity and more
Yeah.
more headspace. Yeah.
Yeah, which excuse me, that is it in the book. You constantly, this weaves through, and I think I said this at the beginning, this ease, this sense of,
Mm.
it's your business, you do what you want with it, you have the answers. Although, as a business coach, you'll know that sometimes you do need guiding to those answers. And that's the thing, isn't it? And that's, I
Hmm.
suppose, with a book, you can learn these things, you can know these things, implementing it is a whole different thing. And even for myself, I would tell somebody else to close that book Facebook group, but I haven't necessarily done it myself yet. So it's difficult, isn't it? And do you have that where people come to you, they've read the book, they lap it all up and they are following some of it, but then they do become clients because they need that. I guess that's the part of a book,
Mm.
that they need somebody to actually guide them through it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've always had a business coach in one form or another since I started my business. And the people who come to me are, in the majority, absolutely 100% capable and 50% confident. And what I do is just kind of enhance what's already there. Sometimes there's radical stuff like, right, okay, we need to change everything that you're offering, but more often than not, it's just about I say just, it's not just, but it's about the mindset and this critical thinking and this conscious business owner thinking. That's what the difference is. But trying to do stuff on your own, man alive, I mean, it's ridiculous. We're independent women, right? And we want to do stuff on our own, but it's like, like, I'm not going to change my own tire, so why am I going to run my business on my own? There's support out there, so let's use it, let's access it, and let's make the most of it, because it makes life easier. And two heads are better than one, as we know, and anything that makes life and business easier is worth doing. It doesn't have to be like a 20 grand investment. It's just saying, right, I need some help, I want to book an hour with you. That is a great starting point, and that in itself is going to make a difference. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it is. I'm a huge fan of getting that support and outsourcing. This is completely separate, but I keep saying recently, the biggest thing I've invested in recently, it's not even a huge investment, is having my ironing done, which is not business related, but it kind of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
is. These things we can make easier in our life that can affect our energy, can give us our time back, or what
Yeah,
we perceive as time. I know you touch on that in the book. It can be game changing, can't it? Either getting support or just outsourcing where you can and making it easier. We're
yeah.
allowed to, aren't we?
Yeah, and I don't know why
We don't.
we wouldn't. You choose you kind of choose your battles, right? Choose your battles, and if someone else can do stuff that you just don't like doing, get someone else to do it. And yes, it's a cost, but what it gives you back in terms of time and the headspace, honestly, you can earn 10 times that for sure, because you just don't have that thing on your plate
Mm.
anymore. Get rid of your Facebook group, because it's just something that's taking up headspace that you could use to generate more income, support more people.
Definitely. Oh, I will do. Right, this is where I'm going to put you on the spot. So on YouTube, well, on podcast, you won't see it, but I'm holding up the book again. And I'm going to put Libby on the spot by asking your top, I'm going to say 3 to 5, because it might not be easy for you to pick this. There's so many gems in this book. Your top 3 to 5 tips or things for people to take away from this conversation today, from your book in general.
Okay.
Because Libby's like, oh no, you really have put me on the spot. Just whatever, even if it's just one, I don't mind, Libby. Whatever you want to do is your top takeaways that people can take from this conversation today
Yeah.
or from your book to go and buy it, because you really should.
No, it's just, do I need to quote verbatim from the book? But no, I don't. No, fine. Yeah, let me tell you about page 23. No, I can't do that. So the most important things to take away from this conversation and to kind of go forward with is to think about the foundations of your business, right? Think about what really matters to you. Think about who you are and what you stand for and what you want to achieve in the world. And I mean, in terms of a mission, right? And how are you going to change the world? What really matters to you? So you think about that. Then think about how you're going to do that, what it is you're actually going to offer to people. How much is that going to cost? How much profit are you going to make from that? And then, I mean, this is 3 things, but 30 things, right? I'm counting them on my fingers. That was 2. And then, and then the final one is, how are you going to get that message across to people? So how are you going to talk to people? Where are you going to share it? And choose one and do it well, right? Don't try and spread yourself too thin. So know who you are and what you believe in. Know how you're going to deliver that to people, and how the profitability, the numbers, and how you're going to communicate the message to people. And that's kind of your 3 things to remember in terms of building a successful business. And it is the simplest way of doing it, which feeds into the easy life, right? The easy ways to do it. The less you do, the more of it you can do, and the simpler it is.
Yeah, love it. You did so well there picking 3, because I think if somebody had asked me that after reading your book, Libby, what are the takeaways? It would have been about doing it with more ease, I think more control, that you're in control, but you've just put that brilliantly. So then this is why it's great, these book clubs. Like I say, I haven't done one for absolutely donkey's years. I don't even remember the last one. You're the first book club back, Libby, and it's been such a treat to have the author, to hear it from your mouth of what you intended to put in this. You've poured your heart and soul into this book. It's just been so great to have you just talk it through. Any last tips you want to share with anybody, apart from go and buy the book, of course? That's my
I
top
was just
tip.
going to say, go by the
Any
book.
final tips?
Yeah, yeah, go by the book,
That is it,
and
isn't it?
then come work with me. No, so I would say, yeah, just be open, be open to change, which is a horrible thing, and particularly if you're autistic, we don't like change. But be open to change, and by that I mean change in yourself. That's absolutely the biggest thing that I've done in the last couple of years, but ramped it up certainly this year. Yeah, be open to changing yourself, to understanding yourself, to knowing yourself, and then that change that brings in your business world and in your life. The more open to that you are, the more you're going to grow.
Love it. Yeah, a word I use a lot, and I think we're on the same page here, is evolve. We evolve, and it's allowing yourself to evolve, your journey to
Mm,
evolve. Those mind monkeys that are holding you back, you've got to push through them and evolve with it, and that's how you will grow. But yeah, I love it. It's top tips, top book, and it's just been a brilliant chat. So thank you so much, Libby. Do check out all
yeah,
of
it's
Libby's
great.
links in the show notes. So do check out the previous episode we've done, which I don't know when that would be, but scroll back, you'll find that. And do, of course,
2 or 3
buy the book.
years. Yeah,
It could be, yeah, it
fab.
probably is, yeah. Oh, we'll get you back in
It
another
is.
2 or 3 years then. We'll keep doing it. Well, thank you so much. It's been brilliant. So
Thank
yeah,
you.
thank you.
Thank you.